Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the podcast. I have with me a very special guest, Joseph E.REID. How are you doing, sir?
I am very well. Thank you, Guy. Thanks for having me on.
You're welcome. I'm honored to have you on my podcast, and because we are talking on a very serious, hot button issue subject about mental health and coping and dealing with mental health and talking about your book essentially that you wrote. So can you tell people about your book, about what you do?
Sure. Thank you, Guy. Yeah, and again, such an honor to be with you here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for creating this platform for people to come on and share important topics like mental health and yeah. So what I do, Guy, is I spend time creating platforms like you're doing right here for people to go and encourage each other. So my organization is Broken People, which is an international peer support group
Mm.
that we're in 43 countries right now, where people just get together online and we just encourage each other. We're a group of non-therapists, non-professionals who just get together and who understand what broken feels like and encourage one another. Um, and while I was establishing this group, which happened after which I built up after the death of my friend, who was who actually took his life. He committed suicide in 2018. Who was a very emotional, supportive person for me. He was also my pastor at my church,
Oh
and
no.
yeah.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of people in leadership, whether it be spiritual or economic or political leadership, who have a lot of pressure on them, and it's this hidden thing. And that's one of the things I'm trying to battle with Broken People, is that it's not anything to be ashamed of. And the more fear we allow to decide for us, as far as what issues we talk about or don't talk about, or even as much as like what things we enjoy or don't enjoy, I think fear becomes an aspect of interfering with you and I accepting who we are. Like I talked with you briefly about before the interview with how I think that the Christian church in America has a way of creating boundaries on what is acceptable and what is not acceptable, and creates these rules and regulations that I think are somewhat ridiculous, and put people in boxes that were never meant to be created. If there is a God, he never meant to create those boxes that are there. So
Mm.
and I think sometimes the things that I like and enjoy may seem foolish or childish to other people, but I think we begin to realize and know ourselves better when we're honest with ourselves and we are able to identify both the fears that we have and the things that we enjoy about ourselves and about humanity in the world. But those things really get in the way of us knowing who we are. And so my group really encourages people to dive into that. And my book does too. My book, Broken Like Me, it really took off on Amazon before I ever even like advertised it. It was a #1 new release on Amazon. It was a #1 bestseller in 5 different categories for several days. I think people can really associate with brokenness, and it's not strictly related to mental illness. It can be related to anyone that feels broken for any reason, whether it be domestic violence, or whether it has to do with your sexuality, or it has to do with like how your hair is doing that day. Like you just kind of feel messed up, and I just
Frazzled,
try to be,
frazzled. Yeah.
yeah, frazzled. Yeah, I just try to be relatable in the book. So my book, I really worked hard in writing this book to have a tone, a conversational tone. So anybody that knows me and they read this book, they're like, well, it's just like talking to you. But there are more people that are reading this book that do not know me. So as they're reading this book, they don't know what I sound like, but they can see a personality of humor coming through a book on a very serious subject. And I've been kind of amazed by how many people look at the book and say it's kind of funny. I'm like, well, I guess that's my personality, But
Yeah.
I think, I think the more, you and I, Guy, we embrace this uniqueness of who we are,
Yes.
And we create a platform like you're doing here for people to hear other people expressing the uniqueness of who we are. It creates a safe place for people to be more welcomed or more welcoming to their inner selves. And in my book, I mentioned to you earlier that I divided it into four sections. But what I didn't say to you is at the end of every chapter, I have a section called utilization.
Hmm.
And what that section is, it's a call to action. But I spell utilization Y-O-U. So how do you
Hmm.
utilize Y-O-U the things I'm
Yeah.
talking to you about in the previous chapter?
Yeah. That's
And
very,
why this is
yeah, that's very smart. Yeah. YOU. Utilization. Yes.
Hey, will you call my wife real quick and tell her that you just said I'm very smart? But yeah, so one of the things I'm not ignorant about is that I'm not really smart. I'm just getting to know myself. And here's the thing, like there are a lot of people that write self-help books and they tell you follow formula A² plus B² equals C² and you'll have this
Yes.
result. And and I think that's pretentious, but that's reality. So what I encourage the reader to do is look at the concepts I'm introducing to you and utilize them. YOU, make them your own. How do you take, for example, one very important, not large section, but one very important section of my book, Broken Like Me, is what I call the mental health scale. That's where you take a scale that I've demonstrated to you and you create it and you communicate it to the people that are important in your community who are significant in terms of your mental health or in terms of your safety, whether it be a therapist, your doctor, your friends, your loved ones, even law enforcement, anyone you connect with that's significant to understanding how you're doing. I introduce a scale that's very, very simple to because oftentimes when you're not feeling well and somebody comes to you, and I actually have a chapter in my book called How Are You? Like that's like the worst question in the world you want to answer. Like I don't want to answer how am I doing. I don't want to tell you that I feel like crap, you know.
Yes.
And so what the mental health scale it does is it gives
Yeah.
you
You should
a
flip.
very
Yeah. You should. Sorry.
yeah
You should flip the tables on them and say, "How are you? How are
well
you
right
today?"
but the problem with that is at least here in the States is it's an I call it an Americanism. It's not really that they care how you're doing. It's more of like a hello. It's a greeting.
Yes.
But
It's a
for somebody like
nicety. Nicety. Yes.
yeah, that's a great way to describe it too. But for me, a person who deals with anxiety, like I have to make a decision when somebody asks me how are you. I have to like interpret that. I have to say, do they really want to know how I'm doing? And so
Yeah.
do I tell them I'm suicidal and I'm really struggling and I'm fighting with my wife and my kids, or are they just being nice?
Mm.
So that wrestling and messes with my social anxiety like crazy.
Hmm.
So I address in the book how to answer that how are you question. And I give tools to the reader to, especially to people that you know are in your corner that ask a question, where you can answer it quite simply if you're not in the mood to tell them, like, for example, you feel like crap and you want to die.
Hmm.
Like, that's really hard to say sometimes,
Yeah.
but you can communicate in a much simpler way uh, that maybe you're in a danger zone and you need a little bit more help. You
Yeah.
need a little bit more encouragement.
It's better to tell someone else than your own voice trying to say that to yourself again and
Yes.
again. So it's much better to externalize it. Yeah.
Oh, it's so helpful. It's so helpful, and that leads on to a couple of the other chapters. So I build a foundation in the book with the scale. Like being able to communicate is really huge. If you can't communicate, uh, then then you're pretty much shot. Like you just it's like it's mental health number 101. It's humanity 101. Communicate. But I think we think that communication can be super hard because we made it really hard. We have all these expectations again that are put on us that we really can't make sense of why they're there. So I push back against that in my book. And then I talk about journaling. And that's where you are communicating with yourself, where you're you're kind of working out issues in your own head, but on paper. And journaling has been scientifically proven to improve your physical health, improve your mental health, improve your ability to perform sports.
Yeah, it's
It's
it's the recycle bin of the soul, shall we say?
what?
Yes.
What? That's brilliant. I've never heard. Why did I even write a
It
book? You
just
should have wrote my book.
Yeah, it's just I'm a writer also. I write poems and short stories, and I write academic papers and stuff like this. I'm not a I'm not a Joe nobody. so
Wait,
so
Joe, nobody. Is that me? Are you
no, no, no. No, I'm talking about an average Joe, not a great,
right?
wonderful Joe, a great author, auteur, Joseph E.REID.
I love it. Yeah, but the problem. I think there can be one danger with treating a journal like a recycling center for the soul, and that's studies have been done about journaling, um, and what happens when you only journal the negative stuff, like you only put crap in your journal about
Mm,
how life is going, is journaling has a tendency to magnify the things you put into it.
mm,
So if you're a negative person and all you write is negativity down, it's going to make you more negative. Excuse me. My grandmother had a saying. She said, if I'd walk around with my face all pouty and or angry looking, and she'd say, "Oh, if you walk around like that, your face is going to get stuck that way,
yes,
Sonny."
yes. No.
And
Never
yeah, and I
happened
think
in
it's
the
just
history of the world, in the annals of
right,
history. Not one
right,
documented case.
right. Not one document. But I think there is some truth that if all you're doing is communicating in your journal negativity, it's going to make your life seem more negative, and you're going to be much more of a negative person. And it's that same way in therapy. Like journaling is a lot like therapy. It's just you're therapizing yourself, which isn't a word, but I also make up words in my book, which is really funny. Yeah, there's just so much about journaling that's so good, and and one of the things I really kick back against journaling that I address people that don't like journaling. So I give some options for people that maybe hate doing journaling and what you can do. Um, but I also confront the idea of rules of journaling. Like I think a lot of people have rules about journaling that don't need to be there. So I write about why they're there and what you can do about it. Like people that think they need to write nicely, or people that think a journal is only something that they're supposed to read. Like I think usually journals are something that you write your own feelings in and are for you, but just because that's usually doesn't mean it's always the case.
Yes.
You could pass your journal on to your kids if you wanted to. There's no rules. Um,
Yeah.
but I think we put rules on ourselves, like again, like because society does that. Society loves its rules.
Yes, you have to. There is also something that is very crucial, something that is talked about lightly but should not be talked about so lightly that it uh, loses all its gravitas. Let's say, talking about journaling and talking about creating a narrative, creating a story for yourself, a narrative that is positive, that is driven, that is inspirational. It is hard to, because everyone, almost everyone, except for psychopaths and sociopaths, they don't want to be too arrogant and have to commit the sin of hubris. So
Mhm.
they so so they don't want to confess to themselves that there are a lot of problems. And even if they are the only ones that create the narrative, the only ones that are going to see it, the only ones that are stuck with themselves. So they have to create a narrative that, because I'm just talking about a lot of all those holistic coaches and gurus and yogis and whatever. They talk about self-inspiration and talk about all these different methods of NLP and stuff like this. and I don't get it. I don't
Yeah.
understand, maybe because I'm not I don't know if I suffer from any type of mental illness or something like this, because I was never diagnosed with anything like that. But I have been through therapy several times, and I don't know. It wasn't conducive to my mental being, because I was in a lot of stress and stuff like this. And the narrative that you create for your own self, it is very important. And it's hard to lie to yourself and say things are much better. I have a lot more things in my life than I think, and I have a lot
Mhm.
more to lose by taking drastic steps in the wrong direction, shall we say. So it is. So what do you think about creating a helpful, candid narrative that lasts the test of time, shall we say?
Yeah. Wow, I could just listen to you talk for a little bit. It's good stuff. Um, yeah, I think that, one of the great things that journaling does is it gives you an opportunity to be honest with yourself. And I think by being honest with yourself, it's both accepting the ugly and the beautiful. And if all we're doing is, like I said before, focusing on the ugly, you're missing something. There are people that go to therapy, and all they ever talk about in therapy is the crap that goes on in their lives. It's just, and 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 there's a thing out there called gratitude journaling. And
Mm,
there's one of the things that really turned me on to was just acknowledging the goodness that we have around us, but not only the things that we have, like, oh, I'm thankful for my wife, I'm thankful for my cat, I'm thankful for my turtle.
yes.
It's those are that's pretty and nice. But I
Yeah.
think, I was really challenged to look at it in a different way, and look at the things around me that I see that are, in a sense, gifts from God. And if we can look at the things around us that we see as beautiful, and we see as that appeal to us personally. So, for example, one of the things I talk about in my book that I really like, uh, are right angles. It's a really weird thing, right? Like, I look out and I see a particularly stark right angle. It's white, and it's against a black background, and I think, wow, I, I'm just really drawn to right angles. It's weird. And the color yellow.
Yeah.
I think if we're honest with ourselves, and we paint the picture and the narrative, a balanced narrative, right?
Mm.
That we're not all perfect. Because there are people like that too that think, oh, I'm God's gift to women, or I'm God's gift to whatever. There ain't nothing wrong with me. Well,
You're
you,
not.
you
You're
know,
not.
you're not.
I
Yeah,
promise you.
yeah. If I had a beard like you did, maybe I could be God's gift to women, but I don't.
Uh,
I struggle with growing a beard. But yeah, I
I
think
should
that it has
shave
to be
it
a
soon, or I will be profiled by the police. Yeah.
oh, goodness. Um, yeah, so you got to have balance,
Mm,
and I like how you say narrative, because you can also tell your story before it ever happens. So in your journaling, you can reflect on the good and the bad, but you can also paint this picture of what your future is going to look like by how you overcome those bad struggles that you deal with, and how do you utilize, again, utilize your gifts and abilities, and the things that you cherish. um, so, for example, I have a stuffed animal. I'm a 45-year-old man who has a stuffed reindeer, but I
oh
like it.
no.
Like, it's totally weird, and I'm confessing to the world right now that I have a stuffed reindeer that I struggle with when I go to bed. I have a wife too.
You're not a furry by any chance.
And and if we can just be honest with ourselves, and admit the things we enjoy, and not be so ashamed of the things that we find appealing, whether it be music. I definitely challenge the idea of, people that judge other people based upon the music that they like. We can be so judgmental of people based upon their preferences, and that creates fear and issues, and I could go on and on. But such a great question, and I hope I answered it. But I get ADD sometimes, so I
Yeah,
forget what the question is.
yeah. I get a mental lapses like this, but um, I think we had a great discussion. This was an introductory discussion, shall we say, into wide world of therapy and psychology, philosophy, and all the rest. It never ends. They're
Never ends.
talking about society and culture and upbringing and self preservation. There are a lot of things that humanity hasn't shaken off from its prehistoric roots as a
Yes.
as an let's say ape or something to that effect. We're not sure. I'm not sure.
Right.
I'm not sure about creation, and I'm not sure about evolution. So I think I'm somewhere in the middle because I have some harsh critiques about evolution and about the materialistic approach to humanity and human beings. And it's not,
Mhm.
it doesn't work that way. Human beings are not scientists. They are they are feeling uh, they are feeling, thinking, emotional, social creatures that need to be in the same space with people in society to integrate, to socialize. They cannot be some kind of amoeboid in a under a microscope. It doesn't
Right.
work that way. It doesn't work that way. So I want to thank you so much for this introductory talk, and I hope we'll have a full feature coming up quite soon. I hope further down the
Definitely.
line. Yes.
Yeah, and I just want to say that what you're talking about there is life is a beautiful mystery, isn't it? And it's a dance
Yes.
between
Yes.
logic and
Yes.
reason and emotion. And I think if we
Yes.
lived that way, everything would be a little bit more smoother, a little bit more understanding of each other.
Yeah. 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 I hope so. I hope there will come a day where I don't know. I'm not. I feel like doing a I have a dream speech, and I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that because I'm capable. I'm from the academic academia. I'm from the ivory tower, a snob, if you would.
Mm,
Uh, I write papers. And I have an MA in art history and English literature. So so I don't want to do that. I want to act as as a citizen, a concerned citizen.
right. Sure. Awesome.
So thank you so much. Thank you. You're awesome as well, of course. So I want to thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you on the next episode. Bye bye.